Great.
So go, because I think that's going to get louder for your recording. 1 second.
Okay, thanks.
How do they do that? They just know the perfect time.
Yeah, I've had builders next door, and
Ah,
sometimes the sound is like I literally I've had a client. I cannot hear a word the client is saying because it's so fucking loud. You know, it just happened, and all day long it's been fine up until the moment this client has something important to share.
oh God.
Yeah, yeah, it's not. It's the those moments have not been fun.
This is literally, it's been quiet the whole time, literally just as we got onto this. Anyway, I'll just stifle in this room. But yeah, thank you for yesterday. I really enjoyed that and loved having, you be a part of that world that you helped me create. So that meant a lot. And I think they got a lot from it as well. So I look forward to practicing with them again in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's great. You know, maybe and obviously when you as you develop things and you've got groups, I'd love to come do things like that. Why? That's fun. Fun and great for us to be able to share a stage together.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously there's so many overlaps between what we do and how the things that I think that I want to help and support people with, the work that you do and the work that we've done together. I think I want to keep bringing that in. So yeah, wherever. Because I was thinking like one thing that Lucy, the coach, does really well is when she has these groups, she has like bonus masterclasses in there as well. And some of them are pre-recorded, some of them happen live. And she gets these other experts in to support, the material that she's teaching and training people in. And I think it's really lovely to be able to do that. So I think as I look forward to doing these big group trainings and stuff, that's something I would really like to bring in. And that's why the club was a little bit of a test and taster for that as well. But I definitely want that.
Yeah, it's just a service, right? And just helps you to upgrade what you're doing too, right? By bringing others in. It's cool.
Yeah, and I think it's sometimes, especially if you think outside of the coaching space, like we hear about coaches all the time. This is the world that we're familiar with, but for the likes of like Isuru and Natalie and Carmen, it's not as easily accessible to them. So for us to be able to present, well, here's this person I know, and this is what they focus on, and here's what this person can help you with, to open the doors a bit wider to this world to them, I think is really, really helpful as well.
Also, simpler a lot of the time because they've not be sort of like fresh snow, right? It's like much easier to work with than it is when it's been dirtied sullied by all the stuff out there.
Yeah, the shit snow, that the grey stuff.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's something I'd really like to do going forward. So stay ready.
I'm always ready. Okay, so this, right? So what I thought this, I don't really know exactly what I'm going to do with it, to be honest with you. But I just thought it's a wonderful thing to go and just have a natural conversation where we get to just talk about everything, really, our experience together of me coaching you over years, and just let's see what's emerged. So from the very beginning, really, as to why we started to where you are now and what you're looking forward to in the future, and I'd like it to be very natural. Because actually one of the challenges with wonderful people wanting to celebrate my work, that I've worked with, is they tend to overdo it a little bit and want to try too hard to make me look good, which is wonderful, but it becomes a bit unnatural and a bit too much potentially for someone to listen to or to read. And so what I'd love is just to share your honest experience of whatever it is. And from that, hopefully some things will make me look good.
Well,
hopefully.
I don't know,
and so maybe I'll use I don't know if I'll use the whole thing, I might use snippets. I've got no idea really.
Cool.
It doesn't really matter too much. I think the most important thing is, like, 'cause also I want to understand more about what things meant to you, you know, and after all this time, like, what stands out still, you know, because that's important for me in the work I'm doing with everybody, really, to understand more about you and what has been most meaningful, you know, from what we've done together, you know.
Yeah, like the lasting impressions, really. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So yes, I'd love that kind of exploration here.
Cool.
Does that sound
This
good?
is a gush-free zone.
Gush-free zone, as wonderful as that is.
Keeping it real.
We'll save that for your workshops.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely. You let me know where you want us to go, and I shall follow.
Wonderful. Okay. So let's begin at the beginning. You know, so we met at Yaron's, right, at his Christmas food for thought, you know, where we were deep thinking and tasty eating, which was a wonderful kind of end of the year celebration, right, for projecting our year ahead. You know, that's where we met with a few others, right? I think there were about 8 of us, I think, something like that, 8 in the room just sharing. But you and I connected, you know, so from that point of just initial connection, which I had no sense of anything really as beyond just we liked each other and you know, you were interesting, you know, so that's kind of where that began. What happened between then and then when we started working together?
So that meeting at Euron's, you met me at a really pivotal point in my life where I had just, well, not just, but I had handed in my notice and decided that I was going to quit my 8-year IT corporate career. I was literally a couple of weeks ago from packing it all in and jetting off to Bali for some months. And I remember, I think I was really primed and ready at that point to just take in any opportunity that was sent my way. From that moment of handing in my notice, there was so much serendipity, and I really think that our meeting was part of that, because I remember sort of watching and listening. Sounds a bit spooky, creepy, watching you that I was watching and listening to you that evening, and the way that you were sharing, and you had already taken the leap yourself from your job and you know, obviously starting to become a coach. And you spoke with such confidence. To me, you were someone that was like really self-assured, and even though I could still sense that you were still figuring it out, you were proud of that fact that you were figuring it out. And I really loved that, because I was like, oh, kindred spirit, you know, I felt that in us at that moment. And it was almost like looking at you as imagining sort of me maybe a couple of years from taking that step, that point that I was at. And at that point, coaching was not on the horizon at all for me. I was thinking, oh, graphic design. And so I didn't even think of you as, oh, okay, you know, he's a coach and that's what I want to be, or anything like that. But what I did recognize in you was just this courage that I was really trying to eke out of myself and use and develop, and the confidence that was giving you and that you were sharing with the room. And that struck me instantly, I think. And so then, as you know, I went on my adventure, came back from my adventure, and that's when coaching had presented itself to me as an option. And I started, I had applied for the Calling in the One coach training, and I started that. And
so when did we, because I remember you'd been to Bali and you reached out when you got back, and we met in Holborn, right? And do you remember that?
Yes.
So at that point, I remember, I think coaching was one of several options, and one was about a jewelry business.
Yeah. So I was training, I had started training to be Calling in the One coach. I was also looking at other options of supplementing my income and just trying different things, because I was very much in a sort of experimental mindset. I didn't want to make that mistake of landing in a career that I hated again. So I was really exploring. And so I had applied for an internship with a jewelry designer, big jewelry brand, because one of the serendipitous moments that I had in Melbourne when I was traveling was I was at an artist's market, and there was some beautiful jewelry, and I really love jewelry. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, wouldn't it be amazing to design my own jewelry range and do that? And so then again, it was just mind bending the way these opportunities just kind of came my way. But I was on Instagram one day looking for, things that I might be able to do now that I'm back in London and I've got no job, but I've still got a mortgage to pay. And this internship for this jewelry designer came up, and there was so much symbolism in there that I was very obsessed with triangles. They were like a real sort of spiritual symbol for me at that moment in my life, and their whole thing was based around triangles. And she was a student of A Course in Miracles like me, and I was just like ding all these things. I was like, I have to. And she didn't require any prior experience in the jewelry trade, so I was like, I just have to put myself forward for that, like something saying do it. And I think that's around the time that you and I met, where I had done the interview for that, but they felt I was too overqualified. So I just asked for some feedback, and then after our meal and meeting together, they then said, oh, hang on a minute, well, how about we do a bit of a trial together to see if you can fit into the company in a slightly different role. How about you work with us on designing a wedding jewelry range? And I was like, what? Like, again, going back to that moment in the market in Melbourne of like, well, how cool would this be? And now I'm also training to be a relationship coach for singles. And I remember one morning sitting at my desk, and in the morning I dedicated it to doing my coach training. In the afternoon I was there sketching away wedding band designs, and I was like, is this my life now? Like, is this my life? Like, this couldn't be more perfect. Like, I'm such a romantic. I'm getting to design like these wedding rings, and I'm getting to help, eventually help people learn how to find romantic love in their life. I was like, this is such a pinch me moment. Such a pinch me moment. So so it was very, very experimental at that point when we met. But I do want to say as well, when you and I met at Pizza Express in Holborn, there's one thing that really sticks in my mind from my meeting with you. And we were chatting. I think we were on like a round sort of table bench thing. You were sat there, I was sat here, and I was talking to you, and the waiter dropped a tray and a bottle or something, and it smashed, and you didn't flinch. I was like, you were just there listening to me. I was like, whoa, like, you didn't flinch, you didn't take your gaze or like move away from me in any way whatsoever. You were just there. I was like, wow. That really stuck with me as well.
I didn't know that, actually. I don't remember that.
Yeah, that's one of the most vivid memories of that that connection that we had that day. I was like, wow, this, like, the fact that you're a coach, and to have that kind of presence with someone, I was like, oh, this is awesome. That was another sort of thing that I noted down internally. I was like, I like this guy. This reason. This is another reason why.
Cool, very cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. Actually, like I had no recollection of that happening. Of course,
because obviously you were being very present. So
clearly. Okay. So then, because what I remember after is like us having some message interactions about things, and as you're going into coaching, and we, I remember giving some support to certain messages you were sending and the way you were sending them, right? Because I think there were some things that just that when I mentioned them to you, they didn't sit right anyway the way you were doing them. So I remember that conversation. So tell me about from your side, like what was happening between then, and what happened after that in our interaction.
So you had been so generous with helping me in those initial conversations, and I think we were just having a chat via Messenger, just checking in with each other. And I was about to, or maybe you had seen a post of me starting to offer my services, because I had just completed my training and was ready to start offering it as a paid service. And I think we were checking in with each other, and I shared with you that I'm going to start charging for my services now. And so this is the fee that I imagine them being at, but I'm going to offer it at a discounted rate.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Of course, discounting. Yes.
Discounting, exactly. I'm going to offer it at a discounted rate. And I can't remember what followed on from that in terms of my questioning, but the thing that, again, that stuck with me that you shared was essentially, well, how can you discount something that you've never even offered before, right? Like, you can't discount something that you've not even put out or sold before. And I'm like, yeah, that's so very true. And why am I doing that? Because I've kind of been trained into that's the way that you do it. And also that's just the examples that I've seen around me quite generally, you know, as I was starting to dip my toes now into this coaching world. I was seeing, well, like other coaches do that, seem to be doing that, or other services seem to be doing like that. So that's obviously the done way of doing things. Now, I've never run my own business before. This is my first foray into entrepreneurship. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to learn from the people that are already doing this. And that was my first kind of moment of questioning, I think, questioning the status quo.
Yeah, because I think with that, it is a common practice, right? You just literally come out of coach training. If you've had coach training, you may not have, right? A lot of coaches don't. They just become a coach, and then they're discounting their services straight away. And I can understand why, because in sales, you know, it's like they're getting a deal. So it means that people might feel the urgency like to get it, especially there's a time limit on it. So these things make sense, but there's a reality of like, well, does it feel good to you to be saying that honestly? And if someone was to ask you, like, okay, when did you sell your last one at the full price then? What would your answer be? You know, it'd be like, oh, never. So then the person would be like, so you're discounting something you've never sold. And it would just be a weird interaction, wouldn't it? And it would, you know, so if you can't follow on the conversation, if anyone challenges you on it, you shouldn't be doing it. Right? It's as simple as that. And that's what it was. It was because of your integrity, right? And there was something in the way you were communicating that didn't feel like, because obviously we'd had interactions, like something off here. And that's what led me to go like, you know, why are you doing that? And to have that interaction with you. Because for some other people, they might be able to do that and it doesn't bother them in any way. They're actually quite happy to say, I've never done it. I've just started. I'm calling it a discount, like take it or leave it. And for them, that's okay. Because for them, there's nothing inside that's wrong for them. You know, I don't personally like it, but that's up to them. But for you, that wasn't the case. For you, it didn't feel right. And that was affecting the way you were communicating, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Just to have, you said it there, it was challenging my integrity, because there I was saying, oh, well, yeah, this is the usual price. Well, what usual? Because as far as I'm aware, you just started coaching the other day. So yeah, okay.
Yeah. And of course, the problem with that is there is a reality of someone just checks back through social media history. It's like you didn't exist as a coach and now suddenly you do, you know. Now, of course, it is possible if someone spent years coaching without having social media presence, and that's okay, but that's not the truth. So it's like, well, what's true? I've just started. So start with lower rates, that's fine, but don't call it a discount.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, in my case, I was very clear, very explicit about what my journey was before that, because I had started blogging from the moment
Arti designs her life.
Yeah,
right?
her life, exactly. I'd started that whole journey from the moment that I handed in my notice of doing like my 100 days of my unlived life and my travels around Bali and all of those things. So people were very, you know, if they were paying attention or wanted to go back, they would be very aware of, hang on a minute, so she went from IT security to now being a love and relationship coach for singles, and this is discounted. Why? So yeah, it was out there for everyone to see.
Yeah, and then what I do also remember is that there was I think I got a message which was inviting me to like there's like an event message of some kind. I think you'd sent it to many people, and so what that's my memory of it anyway, is like seeing this thing being received, and then asking you about that. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that
No.
at
Do you
all.
remember sending messages of invitations to your event or to the coaching?
No.
You're not.
I don't.
Okay.
The thing that I recall is like when I set up a Facebook page, maybe inviting people to that. I can imagine that I probably would have gone through my contacts and been like, "Hey, I'm a coach now. Do you want help, or do you know someone that wants help?" I can imagine that's something that I would have done, but I don't actually recall the message itself.
Okay. Yeah. Like I say, it's only a small memory, so it's
Mm,
probably no big deal. But it was just I think it was the same principle really of it not speaking. It wasn't the Arti that I'd met speaking, and
mm,
so and that's when you think about our work together, really, that's a big fundamental part, isn't it? It's like it needs to be you. Like a bigger you as you expand and grow. But it has to be your voice and connected to your values, your integrity, the things that mean the most to you.
mm,
And so that I think it's because obviously we weren't working together here, but I still like we're connected enough for me to go to be able to have that conversation with you,
mm.
to be of service in some way.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And that was the other thing that, again, if we're going through that list of things that I was sort of noting down about you, was that I had not even signed up to any work with you. I hadn't, as far as I was concerned, I was kind of set because I'd done my coach training. I'm now ready to go out into the world and start coaching. As far as I was concerned, I didn't feel that I needed any further training or support. So our conversations were very much, I was coming from that place of like, wow, okay, this person is just being so generous with their help and advice, and how wonderful that is, and I really really appreciate that. And I think that was another thing that I just put to one side, that when you did invite me to join your work, it was like, well, yeah, obviously. It just made complete, just allowed for that to slot into place completely, because you had been so generous with your support before that as well.
So tell me about that part then. How did I invite you?
I think again it was in our messages back and forth. You had already run one round of your dedicated coaches program,
Mm.
and you were about to go into another. And I think you just made a really simple invitation of, is this something that you would want support with? Like, I've really enjoyed our connection and supporting you, so far. And you felt that I could really perhaps benefit from because of the quality of the conversations that we had been having. And I think the evidence that I was producing in terms of the kind of coach that I wanted to be, I think um, you were really receptive to that. And so you invited me you invited me to start having the connection calls with you, for us to just begin exploring the potential of, okay, what's our connection like in a more formal coaching session
Mm.
together. And that's where we started to explore that. And up until that point, I had only had one-to-one coaching support from previous coaches. I hadn't taken too well to sort of the bigger coaching sort of events and groups and things like that. So I was a bit resistant to group work. Actually, I've always been, even from a young age, of not being that academic, I've always been quite always had this sort of worry around group work, of like, oh, it's going to expose me, of like how I'm deficient in this area or not as good at this area. So And then having done the big sort of bigger coaching events like the Tony Robbins things and stuff like that, I just didn't feel the impact of them as much. And so I was really keen to work with you on a one-to-one basis, I think, because I had got so much from it. But you invited me to do the group working. I'm like, this is going to be the benefit of being able to do the group work. And I think it was really challenging for me to think about that, you know, brand new coach, completely inexperienced, with other coaches, with you, you know, with your experience being there ready to train and critique me. It felt quite confronting. But it just made, I wanted your support, and I was like, okay, well, I've got to, you know, I've been taking these leap after leap. This is just going to have to be another leap that I take, because of the value of the support that I had got from you up until that point. So I think it was quite a straightforward, simple invitation for you to make after we had had those exploratory kind of connection calls together, because we had covered a lot, and especially, you know, you really challenged me around my difficulties around money and finances as well. Like that was a real point, like sore point, and I remember we worked a lot on that. And to have that support at that point in my life where I was feeling really, really vulnerable financially, because I'd left this career that has supported me so well. I did still have a mortgage to pay. I was still driving around in my Porsche, which I couldn't afford. You know, I was like, oh, okay.
So you were driving a Porsche when we were having this conversation.
Yeah. I
know that part.
Yeah. I still had my.
How did you not invite me? How did we not go for a ride in your Porsche? I can't believe that.
I didn't know you well enough then. Yeah, so like this old life that I still had, and parts of it I wanted, parts of it I was reevaluating, and you know, also because I had left my career, I couldn't pay for my mortgage. I needed someone else to pay for my mortgage, so I had to rent my place. I'd moved back in with my parents, so I was in this really vulnerable space, really, really vulnerable space. And that's when I really recognized that, you know, it's more than just about me training to be a coach. Like this is a really sort of pivotal, formative moment in my life again. And not that I expect everything to get everything right, but it could go really, really wrong if I don't approach it with the right mindset, the right kind of attitude, I guess, to a certain degree. I think it was just such a vulnerable point that I think there were many moments where it would have been easy for me to be like, oh, well, this is really hard. This is really difficult. Let me go back to my old life, even though I really didn't want to. And I had made that agreement. I think that was one of the things that kept me going, was that agreement with myself of like, especially returning from Bali, of just, I can't, and I don't want to go back to that old life. So what was going to help me stick and stay firm to that agreement? And one of the things was being supported by you.
So actually with that, like what was the support that you felt that you wanted most from me?
I feel like you showed me something different, because I had exposure to the Tony Robbins coaching world. I had been coached, not by a Tony Robbins coach, but I'd say more of like a spiritual coach for a couple of years, and which was really, really wonderful and got me to a certain point of making the leap. And because I was learning, because I had learned through the Calling in the One method, a methodology of coaching, of how to be that specific type of coach. What I learned or started to observe and learn through you was that ability to think outside of the box with coaching, of like, don't constrain yourself in ways that are not necessary or are unnatural or are out of integrity with who you actually want to be and how you actually want to show up. And I think that cropped up not just for coaching, but just different parts of how to approach life. So how to run the business, how to deal with my finances, how to have managed this new relationship with myself that I was creating over this time, how to manage this new relationship with my family, because, you know, having moved back into their space, you know, well, how do I navigate the responsibility of still keeping that autonomy for myself, but then also, you know, operating as a family unit as well. And I felt that you just had such a refreshing perspective on how to approach this new way of life for me, because you had been doing it now for some time, and it didn't feel devoid of heart, of love. Like, it didn't feel like it was like, okay, well, I'm a coach now and I know best, and this is how we do life now, and go go go, and you know, all that kind of rah rah. It felt very honest, and it felt like I was aware of the fact that you were also figuring it out as you know, we went along. And I appreciated that. I appreciated your willingness to share the things that you were learning, you were observing, and bringing that to our connection, bringing that to our training. And I was like, I want that approach as I try and figure this out, as I try and navigate that. So I think it wasn't like I'm working with David because I want to become a better coach. I think I was like, I want to work with David because I want to become a better human. I want to do this. I think this is it. I because of having lived life the way that I had up until making that decision in 2016, 2015 of quitting my job, I knew that I wanted to do life differently. And through you, I saw that possibility because you were doing it. I want a bit more of that, please.
Wow, okay, that's cool. I like that. So actually it was actually, although obviously we were focusing on your coaching too, it was actually the life aspect that was the bigger draw and the bigger need.
Yeah, because I don't know if you remember this, but a couple of weeks after the dinner at Yaron's, I bumped into you again at Basket Brigade.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember I was with my sister Rashmi, and I remember saying to him, I was like, you know, we should talk to him. You should definitely get to know him, because we were having a lot of conversations around that time about creating financial freedom and stuff like that. And that was one of the things that stuck out to me from when I met you at Yaron's, because I remember the way that you were talking about your relationship to money and finances as well. And I was like, oh man, he just seems so free. I was like, obviously that was an area that I really wanted to start to address, because, well, at that point I had started to wind down in my job. So I knew that, you know, a month on from there, I'm not going to be getting that regular paycheck that I was so used to getting for the last 8 years. It was going to start to look very, very different. And I was massively going to dip into my savings for this trip. So even that sort of attitude that you had around money and finances I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, he's someone that I would really like to speak to about that. So all these things I was sort of aware of as to how you were doing life. It was very appealing to me.
So what is like what was it you noticed in my relationship to finances that you wanted?
It felt, I'm not saying freedom in the sort of like the bog standard way that people use about financial freedom, but I think it really felt like it was not a concern for you, in terms of it wasn't going to be whether you had bags of cash or you didn't. It wasn't going to be something that stopped you or prevented you from doing life your way and having the experiences that you wanted to have. It didn't feel like it was even a factor that you needed to consider. It's like, okay, finances, yeah, they're there, but that doesn't impact on what I do, what I create, who I am.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's cool. So again, I don't think we've ever talked about that. So that aspect of what you were drawn to, and that freedom. Yeah. So like the main focus is life first, right?
Yes.
Like as a coach, you've got to be living the life you want to live. You may not be able to do everything you want because you may not have money for certain things, but everything should be there. And that's the core focus. And we create everything we want, or elements of everything we want, so we're living it. And then of course we can expand it as we become more financially successful too, right? It's just a natural result of being of service, isn't it? That stuff comes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that 100% life first, because I think at that point it would have been really easy for me to get caught up in the, oh, I don't have a conventional job, I don't have a regular paycheck, I don't have I have a mortgage to pay, I have this expensive car, I'm not living, I'm, by that point I was 30, 31. Oh, I have to move back in with my parents again. All of those things. I think it would have been really easy for me to then just really focus on, well, how do I get myself out of that situation? How do I get that stability back? But actually, that wasn't what was important at that point. What was important at that point was to put life first, because I had put life on hold for so long.
Sorry, it's my little bell.
Cool.
Chaos. Dog chaos.
Cool. But yeah, that was the main thing. Life first. And not that it meant like, oh, okay, just throw all caution to the wind and be reckless, but I think there was just, it goes back to that courage. Have the courage to prioritize your life, have the courage to be unstable for a while and see what happens, see what gets created when you're put under pressure in that kind of way. And you have to sort of fend for yourself, I guess. Can't think of a better phrase for it, but if we're talking about lasting impressions, it was like the destabilizing the conditions of your life, right? That was definitely.
Yeah, that's right. It was. I remember when I connected to that. Like I came up with that phrase. It was to create lasting change, you have to destabilize the conditions in which you feel safe. Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's cool that that stayed with you. Actually.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think you sharing that and articulating in that way. I mean, I remember the articulation of that was much later in our work together, but you had been demonstrating that. And also I had been demonstrating that for myself as well by taking that decision.
Oh yeah.
Right. So it was like, so I saw that in you, and I think you saw that in me, and then that's why that synergy was there between us to be able to be like, okay, well, let's test this more, let's see where else we can take this. But that was so even before we are able to put words to something, we feel it, and I definitely felt that with you.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, because it you definitely destabilize your conditions, didn't you?
Yeah, big time. But at first they were destabilized for me. So through the breakup that had this big impact on me. And that was sort of probably the catalyst for me realizing just how unhappy I was. And then recognizing through that, well, now I need to destabilize the conditions so that, if something does happen like this again, well, it doesn't, like, I'm doing the destabilizing, so it doesn't do the destabilizing to me, right? So I recognized that was something that I had to take as much control of as I could.
And so with that, because obviously I invited you, and you would have entered the tryout phase, right, where we get to connect and explore whether, essentially I coach you to find out if this is something we should do ongoing, right? If you should be doing it I coach you fully, and then if that goes really well, you then become a paying client, right? It's like it's the tryout process we would have engaged in there. Do you know if you saw any of the videos I did or any posts about it at that time? Or did it come purely from my invitation and our direct connection?
Yeah, I don't remember a single post.
No? All that hard work I put into those posts and videos.
Sorry, David, I don't recall any. I just remember our conversations and your direct invitation, and that was it. And because you were coaching me so fully, like by the time that you made that invitation, it was like it made sense for me to either work with you in this way or head off on my own merry way. Like we had reached such a point of clarity of, okay, it's that way or that way. But yeah, there was not a single thing that you wrote or filmed that that I recall.
Right. No, that's really good. It's important to remember that, actually. Sometimes you lose sight of, just the importance of that direct connection, right? And the fact that tryout process works. Because we get to test out the chemistry, test out like are you coachable? Am I the right coach for you? All that kind of stuff gets sorted out in a few weeks, doesn't it, of the tryout phase? And then of course, it was just like, would you want more of this? It becomes a very easy yes or no, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And do you remember that, like that? Do you remember that invitation part?
I kind of do. I remember sitting at that desk there, us on a session, and you making the invitation and us having a really good conversation about it, about what it all involves and what it will require of me. And I remember for me, I think I was definitely a yes. Of course, my concern at that point was just financially, because I just invested in this coach training program. I hadn't even thought about that I would be investing so soon again into more training, because again, just the naivety of young fresh entrepreneur and coach. and I think you remember, you probably remember this, where when we were working together, I thought that now that I'd done my calling in the one training, that was it. Like, I was set for life.
I do remember that very
now
well.
I'm a calling in the one coach, and that's it. I don't have to even worry or think, okay, I might do some like additional sort of refresher training and stuff like that, but that's it. This is what I'm going to do, David. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Yep.
And you were just looking at me like, okay, when should I break it to her that that's not going to be the case? But you went with it. You indulged me for a while.
Fully.
Yeah, exactly. You were there, fully supporting me in my daydream. And that lasted a year or less, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 7 months, probably. Like, that program was 7 months long, right? So I think it lasted for the first program, and then of course I think it was by the next one that we stepped into a bigger conversation.
Exactly. And so when you made that initial invitation to me, that was sort of the concern in my mind, like, well, I accept that I might need this, but do I need it right now? Just literally, I mean, I think we're talking like 2 months between completing that coaching training and perhaps starting dedicated coaches, or 3 months or something like that. So that was my concern, but because I had all this support from you and got so much value out of literally every interaction that we had together, it was a no-brainer, really. And one thing that I remember as well was, through our conversations, like, I had this way of speaking, which I think was very influenced by the books, the self-help books that I had read, the courses, the seminars, the workshops that I'd been to, which felt natural at the time to a certain degree, because I was kind of just finding myself inside of all of that. But say, for example, through you having that conversation with me about the discounting, or about how I was phrasing that message and that offer to people, how I was thinking about my finances, how to have the conversation with my dad about my rental income, and sort of paying them, and all of these different conversations that we were having. Like, you really challenged my language and the sort of like vernacular that I had developed around that time. And I felt that through the conversations that we were having, through the work that we had been doing up until that point, that I was starting to now sound more and more like me, like the real me underneath the books and the courses and the all of those things. Like, I was getting clearer about what I actually sounded like, and how I wanted to sort of sound to the world around me as well. And I hadn't got anything like that from any other resource. And call you a resource again. That hadn't been sort of challenged, and you didn't always directly challenge me on that, but I just was aware of that was happening, that through the work that I was doing with you, that I was challenging myself on that, of like, how would you say that? How would you really say that? How would you communicate that? What are you really trying to say?
Yeah, that's a vital one. It's one of the things which, if you go into any coaching groups and just watch the coaches speak and talk about what they do, you could copy and paste it, and it could be anybody saying those things. They don't know. They're, like you said, it feels like they're doing the right thing, because their brains are filled up with this traffic jam of knowledge, and of course, because it's still a traffic jam, that's what comes out. It's on the tip of their tongues. It takes a lot of deep work to be able to go deeper, and then to turn that traffic jam into something that flows and then becomes a part of you, and then something rises up from within that is unique to you in this unique blend of the way that you communicate, you know, and the things that you pay attention to. There's a lot of deep work required there. So I remember we would have done some direct work on that, where I would have mentioned things, but of course that's I think the fundamental part of our work is you having a unique life that is yours, and that the way you speak about your life, the way you speak about everything is a fundamental part of that. You know, so it's great that you remember that being a fundamental part of what you were doing, you know, through our time together.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that goes up there as sort of like one of the real game changer moments, I think, for me, and it's become something that I really work heavily with my clients on, to get them to really figure out what their language is, whether that's their writing a dating profile or how they speak to themselves, even, you know, that it's their language. It's not being, I mean, we're always being influenced, but how do we take that influence and turn it into something that's meaningful for us, that then it's outputted in that way, you know? And it's still a practice to this day, because I remember, like, I posted something on Instagram last week, and literally sort of after posting, I was like, damn it, no, that's how I wanted. I said it like that, but no, that's how I wanted to say it instead. And so I've noted that down, and I'm like, oh, that feels more like me. And actually then it's coming into, that way of phrasing it is coming into the training program that I'm working on at the moment, you know, I'm creating at the moment. I was like, no, actually that was, and so if we go back to sort of big lasting lessons from our work together, is that willingness to create on the fly. Like, don't try to overproduce it or curate it in advance. Like, just get it out there, tidy it up afterwards, get better afterwards. And that's where, like, my lesson of, the way that I felt really comfortable terming or calling it was failing out loud, right? Of like, be willing now to fail out loud. Okay, I've put that post out there, not really the right language, but cool, it's there. This is actually what I wanted to say, so next time I'll say it in that way, or this is my opportunity to talk about it in that way. That's been a real big one for me as well.
Yeah, and that requires courage.
yeah, because it's just that constant removal of filters, right? Of, okay, well, I put that out there, oh, but that was a bit filtered because I feel like I maybe that's how someone else would say. That's not how I would say. Okay, so let's remove that filter. How would you say? And it might be the, for that thing, it's just the most subtle shift. I think it was like, in order to know where you're going, you have to know where you've been. I was like, no, that's not it. It's like, in order to know, like, where you want to go, it's helpful to know where you've been. I was like, that feels more like me, because you don't have to know, but it's helpful to know. It's helpful to stop and look back at where you're coming from, or where you're at right now, before you think about what it is that you want to do going forward. I was like, oh, that subtle change of wording would make more sense to what I'm trying to help people with. So it's that willingness to have that constant dialogue with myself of, what are you really trying to say?
And it's different when it's public, right? It has a different feel to it. Once as soon as you've sent it, things you may have read, I mean, I bet you've probably had this. You read it multiple times, you think you've got it all nailed. As soon as you've hit send and read it back, you see.
I want to know what this phenomenon is called, because I hate it. There has to be a name for it, because every single time, not without, and I could proofread something like 10, 20 times over, but there'll be always be that one thing that catches me out.
Yeah, yeah, as to what it's called, I don't know, but I think it's just that it's the fact that it's live and we have that public exposure now, so it brings a different level of attention, because it's real. It means bang, we have to. But I think the fear response helps us see. We use that fear energy to see, that exposure energy to see. It's definitely a phenomenon that I've experienced and I see pretty much with everybody, definitely. And so that's why, don't spend, the more time we spend up front. Remember Susie, actually, one of the things she used to do when we started, she'd spend, I think she said like 4 hours doing a video, right, is what she did. And the video wasn't very good when she was done, right? Because of course she'd lost all the energy around it anyway. So it wasn't very compelling. And it was only 3 minutes long anyway. So then we got to one take. And so she's like, I'm going to be one take, Susie. And that was it. And so she was putting out these videos far better. She was fully on it. She knew it had that live feel to it, because she knew that as soon as she hit stop, she's going to post it. So it had that feel to it, like a totally different experience. And of course, it resonated with people far better because it had that live exposure energy within it,
Yeah. And I think that's something that I definitely got really good at doing in my time working with you, of like just that willingness to have an idea and put it out there, or not really know where I'm going with something, but be willing to share it, and that public exposure side of things. Definitely there was a lot of that.
Yeah, in fact, I remember David mentioning that people don't, because the way I describe it is that you use social media to grow, right? Social media is an amazing personal development tool, because anytime you want, you can be stepping on a public stage, and anytime you step on a public stage and you're honest, or you're sharing something meaningful, or a dream or a fear or whatever it is, because it feels like you're showing it to the world, right? It feels like you're exposing it to thousands, even if no one cares and no one sees it. It still has that feel. It's one of the best growth tools there is. I remember David mentioning he's not heard others talk about it in that way. And of course, as you all know, when you're part of the group, a massive part was exposing regularly the vulnerabilities, the things we're bad at, the things that are not going well, as well as the things that are. Of course, we've got the full spectrum of sharings, is a fundamental part of the growth, as a coach, as a human being.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was it. It's the willingness to I think curate is the best word, because that's what we've become so accustomed to seeing out in, with just putting the focus on the world of coaching, of like the 6-figure, month or year or whatever it may be, and just the really glossy, shiny aspect of being a coach. But there's this whole other side to it, and I think that's why I've chosen to keep being a coach, because at many points I could have been like, wow, this is really hard, so I don't think I'm going to do it anymore. And actually the old life is a bit more appealing now. And there could have been many moments like that, but one of the things that I really love about being a coach is that it requires me to consistently do the work as well for myself. Like, I can't be a coach, the kind of coach that I want to be, at least for the kind of people that I want to work with, if I'm not willing to keep exposing myself to the challenge, to the work, to the experimentation, and all of that side of things, and taking like full responsibility, like really taking on the responsibility of being a coach. And again, if we're looking at things for reasons why I was drawn to you, is that I felt you really took that responsibility seriously. That it wasn't just a title for you, it is truly a way of life. Like, you do it for yourself. You bring it to all of your connections, relationships outside of your clients as well. It's just it's more than a career choice. It is a, I don't know if lifestyle choice is the right word that I'm looking for, but it is, that's closest that I can think of right now. It is, yeah, it's a way of life that you've chosen.
Yeah, it's a way of being in the world, right? A way of being and creating and living in the world. Yeah, exactly. It needs whether we're alone, you know, or we're surrounded by others, you know, it's that we need to be doing the same, you know, the same dedication to life, you know, needs to be there, definitely. Yeah. And actually, so I wanted to ask you, because you said not the kind of, I don't, you know, I would not to be, what did you exactly say? Hang on. That's it. Not the kind of coach that I want to be, you know, like the way that other coaches do it often, you know, where it isn't that they're not doing the personal growth within, they're not stepping forwards as a coach continuously, right? That's what's out there a lot. There's a lot of fear, you know, coaches who have just started and they kind of get stunted in their journey because they then build that shop front of pressure of like, yeah, I'm a coach now. Everything on social media makes them look like they've been doing this for years, even though they may have done it for like, you know, a few months or, you know, a very short period of time. And then they're crushed by the pressure of that beautiful shop front, when inside the you know, the cupboards are bare, you know, the shelves are empty, you know, because they haven't actually done that much work, they don't have that much experience, and they're not internally willing to expose that, which means they kind of get stuck at a very, you know, at whatever level of success they've created there, and it will unlikely change. You know, but for you it's beyond that, right? It's beyond the external measures of success to something deeper. And so for you, like, what is the kind of coach that you want to be?
I want to be the kind of coach that lives my work, like I set at the, you know, the real essential level of and I think that's one of the reasons why I departed from the calling in the one methodology, because it was someone else's, it wasn't mine. And I appreciate the work. It has had such a huge impact on my life and the people that I coached through it. But I recognized as I was becoming more of an experienced coach that there were some things that I started to disagree with, you know, and actually, oh, this is how I would do it instead. This is actually how I would approach it. And so freedom is another thing, like a really, really high value on my list. And one of the reasons why I think I was drawn to this work, because I want to be the kind of life coach that is always free to explore myself, the work that I do, and do that with my clients and help them find that in themselves, to create that kind of freedom in themselves, in the lives that they want to create, the relationships that they want to create, whatever it is in their life that they're focusing on. So I know that, well, I can't really help someone do that if I'm not willing to keep doing that for myself. So I want to first and foremost be a life coach for myself, right? I want to really live and breathe this stuff. Really, really, really want to be able to do that, to then bring that level of integrity to my clients. So, you know, you and I had this conversation like a few weeks ago when we met up, where I was starting to sort of challenge whether, you know, it is fearless dating the work that I want to keep doing right now, because I'm not actively dating right now, and it's not something that's a high priority for me right now. And what is it inside that work that I've been doing with people that I really, really enjoy and that I really feel is my highest point of contribution? And actually it's the embracing of being single and what that opens up for someone and what that can create, not just as a single person, but the relationships that they get to have in their lives. And I was like, that's where I feel like I can really help someone and really have them have an entirely new experience of life and what it means to be single and what it means to, you know, create loving relationships in your life with yourself and other people. And so again, going back to what kind of coach I want to be, that's the kind of coach that I feel I am, and I will continue to strive to keep being that. I operate with a lot of integrity, that the work I'm doing is work that I really, really believe in and I really, really stand by, and is a demonstration of the life that I'm leading. Like, I'm not just talking out my ass about like, oh, something that I read here or, you know, picked up there. You know, things like techniques and perspectives are helpful, but I only feel comfortable in doing and sharing that if I have had some experience with that myself. So, like, for example, the free video course that I'm creating right now for the end of the year, well, everything that I'm doing, I'm sharing with people in that video series. I mean, I literally have gone through that process myself at the end of many years, and I actually do that on a quarterly basis, you know, and I did my one a couple of weeks ago to really make sure, okay, is this what let me wrap up my year in this way, but is this what I really want people to do for themselves? Do I really feel that this is going to help them? Like, what's it bringing to me? What's it doing for me? And so then I can bring that aliveness, I think. And one thing that I've seen in the world of coaching is that some things are stale, some things aren't alive. They're not living, breathing, like, creations. And people are just like, oh, here's this technique that I learned, let me pass it on to you. Yeah, but why are you passing this on to me? What is it? What's behind it? You know, for example, earlier this week I was in the dance studio with you know, my client, and I have an idea of like the kind of things that we could do that I know that are helpful, but I had no agenda. I was like, we're going to show up in that space and I'm going to meet you where you are, and we're going to do what feels like it's going to be of the greatest service to you in that moment. And so based on us, you know, sitting there and having a conversation, I was like, okay, well, I think this is really going to help. Let's do this. Now let's do this. And we're creating on the fly together, but it's real, it's tailored to him. It's meeting him where he is, as opposed to coming in with this like sheet of, okay, well, now we're going to do exercise number 1, stare at yourself in the mirror for, you know, and now we're going to do this movement, or we're going to work on this. And going back to that point about that freedom to always create, for myself first and foremost, to then be able to help my clients do the same. That's what I want, to always be present throughout my life coaching career for however long it you know, I choose to be it.
Yeah, and so now you're pointing towards the pure coaching aspect, right, which is beyond techniques. You know, it's like, you know, what happens inside of you as a coach and what happens inside of your client, and the bridge between those two things. You know, that's essentially what you're talking about there. You know, really seeing what your client needs, and then of course drawing upon all of the resources you have, all of the tools, and you can choose any of them or none of them, right, to bring to the moment, because you're going far beyond, you know, anything you've learned, more into the way of being of yourself and your client, right? So how would you say that, because you very much used to like having things like a structure, right, having a very specific like order to things, you know. So tell me a little bit about how that's changed for you.
I still love structure.
I know you do.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, and this is what dance has really taught me actually, is that you know, I can have structure to help me create more freedom, help me be more creative. And it's actually something that I learned years ago through graphic design, where, you know, that you would always be taught, know the rules so you know how to break them. Like you would, that's one of like the fun, if you learn graphic design, and I'm sure it's probably the case for all types of design, interior and everything, know the rules so you know how to break them, like become such an expert at them, become so practiced, maybe not expert, practiced at it, so well versed at it, that you then know, well, I can manipulate it or twist it in that way, I can bend it that way, I could go there with it instead of there. And I think that's my relationship now to structure, as what, you know, before it was rigid, it was something solid, it was something immovable. Now it is this kind of this fluid, flexible thing. Like it's almost like, you know, we use the grid, right, in dance, and I can imagine it as just like this 3D, very, very flexible structure that we can just mold and manipulate how we want. And that is now my relationship to structure, and how to operate inside and out of it. Because even, say, pure coaching is a structure as well, right? But it's a structure that gives so much freedom and so much creativity. It's up to you how and when and where you use it, but just knowing that it's there enables you to then go that much deeper with someone, be that much more creative with them, extract that much more from them, allow them to extract that much more from themselves. So now I have a healthier relationship with structure.
Good to know. Actually, I'm going to write that down. Actually, I like that. Like, know the rules so you know how to break them.
It's a real biggie in graphic design, that one.
Yeah, because in pure coaching, we're talking about the rules. I don't really call them rules as such, but it's what's happening inside of a person, you know, whether that's yourself, so that you can be receptive and aware of what's happening to someone else. You can have that advanced empathy, right? So you can actually experience what's happening to them in a way that it's almost like it happened to you, you know, in a good way, like you're there with this person, which also enables you to understand what's going on inside of them, so you know what they need, right? Like you did when you with your client in the studio, your ability to see what to experience within yourself what your client needs, so you can choose the appropriate thing for you to do together, or for the client to do on his own or her own. So tell me a little bit about that, actually. Like might as well go back to that moment with him. Like what did you notice, or what were you able to recognize?
So I was aware of the sort of points that he was sort of getting caught at from the previous online sessions that we had been doing. And so there was an awareness that actually being in the studio will really allow me the opportunity to test some of those things. So even from the moment of how does he greet me when we see each other, because this is the first time that we're seeing each other in person after being connected online for well over a year, you know. And if I'm thinking about this person's relationship to life and the things that he says that he wants to create in his life, well, then that from the moment we connect, like that tells me so much about his potential ability to create those things. Right? How does he greet me? How you know, how do we have a conversation? How does it flow between us? How does he carry himself? Right, you're aware through the dance work that we do together, right? How being aware of how someone walks or stands or moves is very, very telling. of who they are and how they feel about themselves and the world around them. So me just being able to you know, switch on that level of presence with him, to be acutely aware of those things, then I start kind of you know, stacking that up for when we then are in that studio to start doing the actual coaching work together. So I think, you know, one of the things that, again, through our work that I've really learned is that, like, the coaching isn't just confined to those sessions. You know, what's happening outside of those sessions when they're by themselves is just as important. How do they speak to me when we're messaging, voice message, text message? How are they responding to the actions that they said they were going to take? You know, all of those things are just as important as the coaching session itself. In fact, sometimes even more so, right? Because that's when they're left to their own devices, right? That's when they're in what I like to think of as their natural habitat, right? It's like, because in the, you know, it's in the actual coaching session, well, you know, that's almost a bit of a lab space that we're in together, right? But when they're out in the wild, well, what's going on for them there? That's where the real life is really, really, really happening. That's where they get to interact with that stuff. So I'm just clocking that up, and I'm aware of that, to then be like, oh, well, that's how we can test that when we're in the session together. You know, actually, well, how is he going to take to staring at himself in the mirror for just his eyes for 10 minutes, like, while I'm there standing in the corner? You know, I mean, what a weird situation is that, having someone,
that's really bizarre.
yeah, like having someone say, well, just walk around the room. I'm going to put some music on, just walk around the room, and I'm going to stare at you. Yeah, it's not your average experience. All right. So that is a really important part, demonstration of just being aware of this structure, to then be able to really play with it and meet my client where they are, and not try and lay all this, like, I know what I'm doing on top of it, right? I think that's it. It's a very humbling career path, right? Because yes, you're the person that is there to help guide them and create this real safe space for them to open up, explore, and get vulnerable, and all of these, like, wonderful things. But I never assume that what I'm doing is always going to be right, or is the thing that they must do. Like, I always accept that I'm a humble participant in this journey with them, like, through how they're showing up. I get to learn as well. I get to learn more about them. I get to learn more about coaching. I get to learn about myself. That's what I really love about coaching, that when I'm coaching my client, I'm not just coaching them, I'm getting to coach myself at the same time.
Oh yeah.
Love that. It's always easy, right? You know, something might fly out your mouth when you speak to your client. You're like, so how are you getting on with that? Arti, like, okay, let that not just be on their action list, let that be on yours as well. Incredibly humbling, really amazing. I love that. And so in that session, it's like, okay, well, it's been a while since, you know, you've checked in with how you're walking around the world. So, like, for example, on the journey home after coaching him, well, I'm really aware of, how am I walking down the street? How am I carrying myself? How am I interacting and making eye contact with the world around me? like, where is my head positioned? Is it there? Is it there? Is it up there? Yeah, and I love that I get to check in with that. I get to test that. That's amazing. That's priceless.
That is a beautiful thing. Yeah, it's definitely a fast track for personal development if you're paying attention. Yeah, definitely. And of course, it makes you far better able to serve this person through walking through the world with those new eyes, right? Because the sharper eyes, aren't they? Each time you do it, that you're able to perceive more about yourself, and then of course perceive more within your clients because of your personal growth within it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, again, one thing that I learned from you, even from the moment that we were doing the tryouts together, was, you used to have this email that you sent before coaching together. It was like the automated email from Acuity when I'd book a session in, and it would tell me to prepare 10 minutes beforehand, just taking that time to be free of any distractions, to connect with why I'm showing up to the call when we do the call together. And then you also encourage I think in that email to do the same following on from the call as well. That same approach I'm always trying to remind myself to do with my coaching sessions when I'm being coached or when I am coaching. Actually, it's just be clear, before the session. Just spend that time beforehand of remembering why you're showing up, whether it is you're being coached or you're coaching, and to not just rush off afterwards, like, okay, that's done, bye, like, hang on, what did you get out of that? What did you do well? What would you upgrade? All of those things. That's really, really important as well.
Yeah, because part of that is obviously we've got to teach our clients how to be coached, right? How to make changes in their life, and so we have to interrupt their way of the busyness of their world. So that's part of that, isn't it? It's teaching them how to be coached and how to get the most out of their lives and the coaching. It's very, very important. Really glad you reflected that, because I haven't been doing that for ages. I haven't been using Acuity for a while, and it's something that I do mention, but it's not the same actually, I think, as a reminder to actually before it and after, so thank you. I'm going to reactivate that process that works so well for you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'd forgotten just how effective that was actually, of having people prepare better and give them those nudges, automatic nudges, right? So that they are more and more ready before the call to get more out of it. Yeah, thank you for that. Now, a question popped up. What was that? What was the question related to what you were saying there? Oh, that's right. It was like, or not question as well, question something very important anyway, which I think is the way that we approach coaching, which there are coaches out there that do this, of course. There's a whole world that does, but there's a whole world that doesn't. And I think it's very important for us to remember and to educate other coaches on this. When we begin working with someone, we are not coaching them during the sessions only. It's actually a responsibility that is from the entire duration of whatever time frame we agree upon, which is why I prefer months as opposed to sessions. One of the reasons, because like if we know we're going to be working together 3 months, 6 months, a year, then during that period of time, the support is there continuously. It doesn't mean that you're going to get messages all day long or anything like that, because that would be a red flag if you did, right? That'd be something to coach them on, actually, if that happened. But actually, it's to know that they have our support continuously in their life. So they may be, whatever they're doing alone, they're not alone during that time. It actually can help in those moments. When we do that, it's how, like with the pure coaching aspect, we create that space and that support so they can truly feel it remotely. And so what was your experience of that, during our time together?
That you were always available. And that didn't mean that you didn't have any boundaries, because you did, right? But there was just this awareness that I could ask you a question, I could reflect something back to you outside of our sessions, doesn't mean that I'm going to get an instant response, but that freedom that I felt that I could share something with you was really, really important. But also, as you said, to check in with, well, am I just sharing this because I'm feeling uncomfortable? And actually, should I stay with it a bit longer before I reflect something back to you? Or if I have like this urge to ask a question, well, really, is it you, is it me that should be asking that question of myself and providing that answer for myself, rather than thinking, oh, I can just ask David about it. And I think that was a real muscle that got built over the time that we worked together, because at first I think I was like, David will know, David will know. Right, like he knows best, and I think that was, again, if we're talking about things from childhood, that's been my default. I'm the youngest, I'm not that academic, I'm not this, I'm not that. I look up to guidance outside of me. They know best. That person knows best. That person knows best because they're an expert at that. That person knows best because they're older than me. That person is, we talked a lot about me being the little one, right? For so long, that being like an identity that I wore for a really, really long time. And that was prevalent for that work that we started to do together. And so that was a real test for me. If we're talking about like coaching through the invisible, there's the visible stuff that we work on, right? Which is okay, I want to become a better coach. I want to work on this area of my life, the things that I explicitly communicate to you in sessions. But then there's the implicit stuff that's happening in the background that's showing us, oh, okay, maybe that needs to be addressed too. So me being aware of like, oh, this desire to always think, well, David knows best. Let me ask him this. Let me find out what his opinion on this is. And hopefully over time you notice that decreased and actually there was more autonomy being created there, where it's like, well, okay, you've got that resource within you, like you've got the resource of knowing that you can reach out to David or to the group. But first, what do you think? That was a really, really big one. And so for me to get to that point at the end of last year and say to you, David, I think I need to go it alone for a bit, was really like a really, really big deal, because what we had been working together for how long by then? I don't even know.
Like 3 years?
3 years? 3 years?
I think 3 years.
4 years, I think, somewhere around about that.
3 to 4, between the 3-4 range, yeah.
Yeah, and before that, I had just had, like, I'd obviously done the coach training, which involved some coaching in it as part of the training. Before that, I was in Bali, which, okay, so that was a quick sort of interlude between the coaching that I had sort of in the lead up to that for maybe like a year and a half. So I had been being coached for a really freaking long time. So, and out of all the coaching that we had done, the coaching that I was doing with you was across the board, right? It wasn't just business. It wasn't just learning about being a coach. It was life coaching as well. It was like it touched upon every part of my life. So to then say to you, like, I think I need to just step away from this for a while to just see what happens. And I think I used those words with you, like, I just want to see what happens when I'm freewheeling it, because we had done such deep work together for such a long time. It's almost like I wanted that space to really put a lot of this stuff into practice, test my retention for it as well. Like, what have you remembered? What are you able to recall and put into practice? What feels a bit sort of fragile and maybe needs a bit more attention and work and focus? what have you just like completely forgotten? Apart from then when maybe you see David do a post and you're like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about that. Right. That felt really, really important for me. And I think I'd never thought about it in this way until a client of mine said it to me, where she was in a situation and she said, I could hear your voice telling me what to do, like telling me what would be a great thing to do in that moment. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. That's so, so cool. And I totally get it, because I hear your voice all the time. I mean, sometimes you just don't shut up. So yeah, I totally got what she meant there, where the spaces between natural sessions themselves, you're still present, you're still there, you're still offering guidance, or like shifting my attention 3 millimeters to that direction. Right. Oh, okay, I get it now. That has, yeah, that's been again invaluable, and something like I still carry to this moment, and even like getting to that point of really, when I felt like, okay, well, maybe I do want coaching again, to really ask myself that question of, well, why do you feel you need it? And there were so many moments between us not working together where I'd be like, oh, I need a coach's help with that. I'm like, really? Do you? Or do you just need to figure it out yourself? Are you thinking that because you're just a bit uncomfortable right now? And you just want a bit of like moral support, just like an arm around you kind of thing in this moment? Or is it something you really, really like, you've tried and you just really can't figure out? Or you want to move in a different direction from where you are, whatever it is. Like I had so many moments of that over this year where I was like, yeah, do you? And I was so glad that I was able to ask that question of myself, because I think you would ask if I had come back to you and said, hey David, can I help with this? And I feel that you in that moment would have been like, well, do you? Right? Are you sure? Is this like, what is it about what you're going through right now, or what you want to do right now, that you feel you need my help with? And that's made me really so much more articulate in being able to figure out when I need support, what kind of support I need, why I want it, and being really aware of where I can support myself through something, that like to get to this level of I feel like I've used the word autonomy a lot today, but I'll go with that again, because that's a big deal. Yeah. That's a big deal. Like that shows such a huge growth point for someone that felt so scared of their own opinion or their own perspective. It's a big freaking deal for me to get to this point where I'm like, no, well, just do it. Just do it, see what happens. And then actually through trying it, maybe that's when you'll realize, oh, well, that's the bit that I actually really need help with. But go and try it first, like, when you and I were finishing, we had that final session together, and you asked me that question of like, well, what happens if for the next year you give fearless dating your ruthless focus and attention? And so then I think we're looking at maybe around sort of March, April time. And I was like, oh, I could do the Creative Fearless Life or Fearless Life something around this time. And I was like, no. You said you're going to give fearless dating your ruthless focus and attention. That's going to deviate completely. That's going to take you off a completely different track. And you and your business don't need that right now. This is where you need to stay. And just being able to make that kind of mature decision for myself and my business was, I remember that specifically because it just felt like such a important moment of like, look how far you've come, and you are a businesswoman, you are, you are an entrepreneur, you are figuring this out, you are creative, you do know what you're doing. And that felt really great to have that, and I'm really glad I stuck with that, because then it's got me to this point where, okay, I'm not doing fearless dating as such anymore, but man, the thing that I'm doing now feels excuse me, even more true to me and what I want to do, and even more aligned than the fearless life kind of stuff that I was doing before, because I recognize in that's an older version of me now. The thing that I'm doing now is where I'm at right now, and the ways that I want to evolve now as well. So it's got that freshness and that excitement that I think I'm always looking to have in my coaching work, and I wouldn't have had that.
That's my doorbell again.
I'm going to switch the light on actually, so yeah,
Okay.
good timing.
So I'd love to actually just talk about the journey actually from calling in the one to where you are and what's in the future. But just before we do that, because there's some cool things that you shared, which I'd like to point to. One of them is to do with the autonomy and how like I supported you in developing that. And the other one is in the moment, when you said that you didn't want to continue coaching anymore, and just how wonderful that was. So I'd like to reflect on both those things. So first with the autonomy thing. So what I did, and it's quite important, it's why the pure coaching is quite important for this, because I'm connecting to where you were. So early on, I was answering a lot more. So there was a lot more just actually giving you what you're asking for very early on, because that's just at that time it felt like that was the right thing. We were developing a bond. I was supported. I wanted you to feel connected, safe, supported. I'm here, and I'm giving you what you need in this moment. And then there was a graduation over time of slowing down that process. So I would have to actively choose. Like maybe I wouldn't respond so fast to start with, and then I would give less of an answer, and then I would maybe, instead of giving you an answer at all, I would reflect it back and I can get you to answer. And then, so over time, there was an increase in space, an increase in getting you to draw more out of yourself over time. And that just had to be gauged with your experience of life. And as best I was able to connecting to where you really were and what you actually needed over that period of time to get to that clear voice. So that was quite an important thing that was happening mostly outside of the coaching sessions. That was mostly the in-between, that was there. which is a fundamental thing to help develop autonomy in a way that is autonomous, as opposed to if I'd done it too early, it just would have felt unsafe and uncertain, and it was unlikely you'd have developed the autonomy. It would have been too much too soon. You know?
Yeah. And I think I really understand that, because my client at the moment, where in between sessions to begin with, I'd get regular messages of, oh, there's also this thing that's come up for me and I want us, I would love help with this or this and that. And then when we met up for our session on Monday, there's been about 2.5 weeks between the previous session. And I was like, how have you been? I haven't heard from you at all since we last had our session together. And I noticed just the decrease in that time. And he mentioned, actually that he did feel a bit of discomfort the day before, but he'd stayed with it and he'd been putting into practice some of that, the feeling into freedom work and of just being with what he was experiencing, as opposed to trying to distract himself, and also recognizing that it wasn't necessarily a bad thing that he was feeling what he was. And actually, just seeing that relationship develop with him is the perfect mirror of the journey that I went on with you, where it's like to give the right amount of support up front at the start to build that safety of like, I am here for you and I'm here to help you. But then as time goes on, well, what happens if you just that I'm here, but just spend some time on your own and just creating? You don't have to have an answer to every question. Actually, sometimes it's great to have a question, just remain open for a while as you do get on with your life, to see the different points of interaction that you can have with it, and what that brings up. So definitely I felt that with you, and have then in turn been able to practice that with my clients as well, which has been very cool.
Good work. Very good work. It's because that requires you to hold your discomfort, right? Because there are times when you really want to help, and there might be, it's like this person's at the moment in pain, so I want to be there, but actually holding that is what this person needs more than actually me doing what they say they want. Like when this person's in pain and is asking you a question, and to throw a question straight back at them, without having responded to their question, actually sometimes can be really hard, because in this moment this person's like, I want an answer, but actually what's the thing that, even though it might make me uncomfortable, it might make them uncomfortable as well, what's the thing that's really going to help them grow through this situation, and create something as a result of this situation, as opposed to just kind of putting the fire out as quickly as we can. Because part of what we're doing is we're creating rites of passage for people, right? Because it's missing in our society. We don't really have it anymore. And it's like we're creating those opportunities for someone to go through their own rites of passage, which means they develop in areas they haven't yet developed. They grow up essentially in certain places. We all need it, and we get to provide that space where they feel safe enough to be able to go through these trials without those trials crushing them. Where they can thrive through those until they get to a point when they want to thrive on their own, which is a beautiful thing. That's why, like when you said, that you think you're done, at least for now, like you think you need to go it alone, it was an amazing thing to receive. It just felt so good, when you said it, because it came from such a place of strength, such a place of knowing what it is you need. And as soon as you said it, I'm like, of course that's what you need. It just made perfect sense. And it was just a testament to who you become, as a human being, right? To be able to say that, and to truly just get out in the world and see what the hell's out there without having that constant support that I'd been for years.
Yeah, and I remember you, like, as we were wrapping up that conversation and recognizing, oh my God, okay, well, I'm not going to be, who knows, the next time I'm going to be in the like official coaching session with you or in like one of the groups. And I remember saying to you, like, oh gosh, I feel like I'm flying the nest now. And you said to me, no, you flew the nest ages ago. You're now going across like international waters or something.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, okay. I see. Yeah, that was really beautiful moment as well, for sure.
Exactly. And it's spreading your wings, which is obviously what you're in the midst of doing.
Yeah, I think because when I said that to you, like, I think I just, I think I'll go it alone for a little while. Maybe in my mind I had like 3 months for some reason. Again, structure loving Arti is like, yeah, 3 months, that's fine. That's a great amount. It's like 1 whole quarter I can get through by myself. And I remember thinking, yeah, that would be probably an appropriate amount of time for me to then return back to the work. And you said to me, well, how about a whole year? Like, I think you should go a whole year. And I was like, what? And then I was like, all right, okay, cool. Yeah, maybe I will do that. And then I remember not long into sort of maybe the first week or 2 of being, because we would meet regularly, right? It'd be almost like on a weekly basis that I would be being coached by you. And then once sort of week 1, week 2, week 3 went past, it's like, yeah, this is a really good idea. This is a really, really good idea. And yeah, maybe actually I will carry this for as long as I want, because then I'll really get in tune with that that voice in me, and getting to be able to differentiate between that voice in me that's just like crying out for help because just you're a bit uncomfortable, as opposed to like you really need help. And what, one thing that I learned from you is be very specific in the questions that you ask, right? So if I'm being specific in my question of what I need help with, and it's a question that I can't answer myself, or I can't find out the answer to through experimentation or even a Google search, right? Then perhaps that's something that I actually need, a professional's help with, right? And so that was one thing that I was really practicing over that time. And also in our work together, we've really explored like the dangers of echo chambers as well, right? Of being in these spaces where everyone's just saying the same thing all the time. And again, if we're thinking about the coaching world as we sometimes see it, that can be a bit of an echo chamber as well, of like, do it like this, and all that messaging that consistently is being sent. And I think, I actually, when I thought, oh, okay, well, this is the area that I want coaching help with now that, whatever 6 months on into 6-7 months on into the new year. And I was like, I could ask David about this. I could get David's help with this, but wouldn't it be really good to just get, a different perspective, like someone else's perspective on them? Like, who else out there do I really appreciate the work of? Do I like what they're creating and up to in the world? Do I feel that affinity towards that I felt with you? Oh, okay, like I really love what Lucy's doing, and she's, offering this thing at the moment. Okay, let me take part in it for a little while and see what she's up to. Do I vibe with it? Okay, well, maybe then I want to work with her for a while. And just being able to be willing to interact with all these different voices and opinions, and not have to take them on as my own, but you're like, okay, I really like what she's doing or he's doing, I agree with that part, not so much with that part, but this is what my version of it is. So if we go back to that conversation that we were just having about our own language, like discovering our own language, well, I get to do that as I choose to work with people. And I think that it would have been really easy for me to say, David, I'm coming back to you, right? And there was plenty of times where I'm like, right, let me come back to you. But then again, if I'm thinking about like my ultimate growth, what happens if you just cast your net a bit wider and listen to someone else's perspective, or try, see what their approach is to this particular thing. And I think that has been really powerful, I think, through our journey together, of just just be really mindful of not taking in just one perspective, one way, one person, one method, one is like have that, be creative and free with the way that you interact with all these different people and resources that are available, and you make what you want out of them, as opposed to being like, okay, well, I'm just going to take that for what it is and like apply it straight onto my business, and that's it. Not question it, not tweak it, not make it my own. And that was another big thing that I really learned on our journey of just beware of the echo chambers.
Yeah. So connected to that, then let's explore, so from calling in the one, what's been your coaching journey? What have you created from calling in the one to now?
So as a result of calling in the one, as I mentioned, there was this quite, I don't know if I want to use strict, but there was a method, 7-week method that you take clients through. And I remember having those coaching sessions with people where I'd have all the pages laid out on my desk for that week, because obviously I'm supporting them as they work through the book, which has 49 days of exercises in there. So each week there's something related to that section that we're working on. So there's that structure that we have to go through to a certain degree. So as I'm getting more familiar with the structure, that's all laid out there. And whilst that was good to begin with, it then, as I mentioned, it started to then, is this becoming a crutch and I'm not being as creative with it? As I started to work with you and learn more about just life coaching in general, because what we were doing to get what I was doing with you wasn't about specifically relationship coaching for singles, it was by a life coaching skill. And so as I learned more about that, I started to then question some of these things in this structure. Like, well, from what I've experienced now through some of the coaching that we've been doing, and when you used to pair us up and give us external clients to work with and stuff like that, I realized, well, I can get to an answer quicker if I do it in this way, or a better, clearer answer, or a truer answer if I did this instead of maybe this. And so I remember you running a workshop one weekend with me, David, and Paul about how to create our first program or something, workshop or something, our first offer. And you helped us reverse engineer our way to our first thing. And I reverse engineered my way to my first ever program, Fluid Estating. Right? And that was really exciting, because I loved that journey of, well, this is where I want my client to get to. this is where I want them to end up. I want them to be a fearless dater. Okay, well, what's the preceding step to that? How do they, what's the thing that gets them to that? Oh, well, okay, in order to be doing that, they need to be doing this. Okay, so what's before that? And I loved that journey of figuring out. And through that, I think it was a 12-week program to begin with, the first iteration of it. And that was really exciting for me, because like I'd made that up myself. Like I didn't need to, I guess I was calling upon my experience from, you know, the coaching work that I'd done with you, what I'd learned through calling in one clients. But most of all, I was calling upon my own experience of like, well, how did I get to that point where I was really enjoying dating? And we backtracked through that. And this was all mine. Like that was the most exciting thing about it. There was nothing that existed like this in the world. No one else had this. It was mine. Like I just literally given birth to it in that moment, right? And that was so cool. I remember just feeling so excited by the concept of that. Also feeling a bit freaked out, like, oh gosh, okay, well, like I'm really doing it on my own then if I do put this out into the world. And yeah, I was really excited about that. Not that long after, I kind of sort of tidied it up a bit and was ready to push it out into the world. And I think that summer I hosted my Transform Your Love Life from the Inside Out workshop. And instead of calling in the one being my offer, it was fearless dating. And it was calling in the one and fearless dating. And the people expressed interest, the ones that did tick the sheet afterwards, it were in fearless dating. And I got my first fearless dating client from offering it at that workshop. And I think just cool. So cool. And I think just the energy, there must have been an energy behind how I was sharing about fearless dating versus calling in the one, right? Because it's new, it's fresh, it's mine, and yours. And I'm in it, I'm in the experience, like fully, and that call to you know, those people that expressed interest in it, and that was it. I was off and away with this brand new program that I'd created. And obviously riding off the back of the energy of that, I could then apply that same process to then create I Love My Body. And I remember us having some calls around that where we just kind of tweaked and finessed what that was going to be. And that became a journey. And that, you know, I was able to offer and get clients for, and that became a new thing that was all mine. And that to be running these two things that were just all off the back of my own experience, that's the kind of coaching that I wanted. I think with, you know, when we talk about integrity, with like coaching with integrity of who we are and what we want to see in the world, it was happening now because I had created these two things without needing to lean on someone else's experience, just off the back of my own completely. And that was really, really cool.
And of course, it was the blend of your personal experience of what you've done, as well as what you were able to do as a coach. You know, so it was that unique blend that is unique, you know, it was all yours.
Yeah.
That's what that was.
Yeah. And to, you know, when I call, like, for example, with I Love My Body, you know, to be able to be like, well, I want to collaborate with people on that I think will be really, really supportive to that journey. Well, okay, who my collaborators were kind of instant no-brainers. Well, okay, my dance teacher, right? You know, our conversations went way beyond dance. Okay, well, I know that she's going to be a beautiful support on this journey, a beautiful teacher on this journey. And then my photographer from my naked photo shoot, or she's going to be a brilliant support in this journey. Oh, the life drawing artist that I've worked with through the smudge lipstick work that I was doing at that time, well, she's aware of what we do or what I do, and we've worked together in that capacity, and I know what her approach towards life drawing and body image and everything is. So she's going to be a great person on this journey, and to be able to create those kind of collaborations and relationships, and just again, one thing that just made it such a unique experience, and it was so magical. It was like really, really magical to be able to create something like that. I felt so utterly proud of being able to do that, and know how easy it actually is. Like I still use that process now, like for this video series that I'm creating at the moment. Well, I reverse engineered it. Like, okay, it's called Let's End 2021 Strong. Okay, so how would you end 2021 strong? What's the point that I want them to reach? Okay, I want them to be there. So what gets them there? Okay, this, and this. And one of the big things that I've learned over our time together is the simplification of it as well. Like, that's been a real journey and test for me over time, where how do I strip something down to its bare essentials that actually I end up supporting someone more than I realize, because I'm not jam packing it full with like, oh, I think they need this, and this, and kind of, get everything in the kitchen sink in there. Actually, when I strip it down to bare essentials, then I can be of more service to them. If I'm thinking about this series, well, I'm really, as I'm sort of writing out the notes for it, I'm thinking like, no, Arti, what are the bare essential questions that they need to ask themselves at the end of this 5-minute video? No more, no less, right? What is it that will get them to the next stage, get them that insight that they need? There's only like just over 6 weeks of the year left. That they can't do it all, right?
Yeah.
What's the thing that will just get them through these 6 weeks, to prepare them well for the new year, for them to be able to sort of proudly look back on this year, no matter how challenging it may have been for them. Be like, okay, this is what, be very clear on their responses to, okay, this is where I did well, this is where I perhaps could have done better, this is what I regret, all of those kind of things. That I have that dialogue with myself regularly. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Which is really important. Yeah.
So then actually, so you've created quite a lot of things over the years, right? So just, do you want to list out some of them, the ones that come top of your head?
Yeah, so fearless dating, I love my body, freedom through movement, fearless, create your fearless life, the fearless dating profile makeover, the fearless dating weekend retreat. What else is there? I've done a few webinars on different things. So from shit to shining, how not to hate dating online, and how to date successfully in 2021. That was done at the start of this year. This what I'm working on right now. This video series is new. Let's End 2021 Strong, but I've done different versions of it. So I've done an open webinar version of it at the end of 2021. I've done more intimate versions of it with my clients, and when we've done quarterly reviews. Then the new program that I'm creating, which is Activate 2022. The dating detox, which I'm working on for the new year. The new version of whatever fearless dating is now going to be evolving into, I'm not sure yet. Anything else that I've missed there? Oh, Transform Your Love Life from the Inside Out, that was in there. Was one of the first. I feel like that's the podcast as well.
Yeah.
The Fearless Dating podcast, which there's a new podcast coming hopefully soon. It's going to be called Single Sessions with Arti Joshi. So again, now around this new focus and area that I'm working on. So yeah, hopefully stay tuned. Hopefully that will be with us in the not so distant future. So the podcast has been really exciting. Yeah, I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I don't know what it is.
Laser coaching was one of the things that you created.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, On Point, inspired by On Point Ballet, right? On Point laser coaching. Yeah, sort of the private personal coaching journeys that I've been able to go on with people as well has been really cool. So yeah, that was it. Thank you for reminding me of that.
You're welcome. Yeah, and just what's evident there is just your stamp on all of it. So things that you felt inspired to create. Some of them worked really well. Some of them worked a bit well. They all well worked in some way, right?
Yeah.
Some of them you loved more than others, of course. Some you're going to continue with, but when you go back to obviously where it was, calling in the one forever.
Yeah.
When actually it's like you're so creative. Arti designs her life. Your background in design, right? It's like, of course you should be creative. You should be living a creative life, and of course your business should be an expression of your creativity. And from what you're just pouring out, that's exactly what it is. Your life and your business is an expression of you and your creativity.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I mean, yeah, like what a turnaround from calling in the one forever to actually these few years have been so creative. I mean, there's been so many ideas, and probably ones that never made it. There's probably the ones that I'm thinking of are the ones that never really actually even made it, but they were still there, whether they were like a few pages in my journal or a voice note or something like that. But there were some other ideas there as well. And it's been a really, really creative few years. And I think that's one thing I really admire about this journey, is that my willingness to really, as you and Richie say, point and create, right? Of like, okay, I have this idea. I don't have to have it fully formulated, just point and create it and then see what happens. And I've really been able to experiment with that, and had a lot of fun and learned a hell of a lot about myself along the way as a result of doing those things as well. And every time getting closer and closer to more and more of the people that I would love to keep working with. And whenever I feel like I'm maybe deviating away from that, having the tools and knowing which questions to ask of myself to think, well, why is that happening? What do I need to look at? What do I need to address? What do I need to perhaps rephrase, or a better question that I can ask someone, or a better way of putting something out into the world? And I think that's, when you talk about like the level of creativity and my business being a demonstration of that enjoyment of my creativity. And one thing that I've also noticed over this time as well is like, well, I could quickly throw together a post with like a real minimal graphic or something, but I know that I enjoy graphic design, so I'm also going to indulge that hobby and passion of mine by maybe spending like 5 minutes more on doing like this. Okay, it might not be amazing standard, but I just, the enjoyment of creating that side of things as well, of how the aesthetic of the post, or the aesthetic of a video that I put out, or how I look when I show up to doing a video. Yeah. Like remembering that my business is not just like the nuts and bolts of the product or the service, right? But actually that I get to I get to indulge in the things that I also really enjoy through my business. Like, I mean, the perfect demonstration of this is the dance, right? That dance was something that I loved as a kid. In my dreamiest of dreams, I would have loved to be a dancer, but obviously it's something that I never follow through. But actually, because of coaching, I've been able to dance more, and I've actually been able to bring dance into my coaching, into my work, into my career, because I've found that bridge between my dance journey and what I've learned along the way, and how that could help support the work that I do. So in a sense, I am a dancer by profession, because I've brought that in, which has been really, really, really cool. Freedom Through Movement, that's all about dance. The fact that we were in a studio on Monday doing that was because of dance meets coaching, meets life coaching. And I never in my wildest dreams would have imagined that anything like that would be possible. And again, if we think about pinch me moments, those are pinch me moments. To have my dance teacher teaching my client how to move whilst I sit there and I observe, that's really freaking cool. Like, really, really, really cool. So it's way beyond just life coaching. There's so many ways that you can take it. I'm so excited to know what other kind of collaborative pathways I can create for myself between the things that I enjoy that I would maybe think are outside of life coaching, to bring them into this. So that's been immense.
Yeah, just the way you talked about that as well, you're just buzzing.
It's like it still gets me, it still surprises me, because I'm like, no, I just would never have thought that would be possible. But to be on that retreat in Spain with you guys, and to be sitting on the rocks, by the sea, I think on the last or penultimate day or something, and I can't remember exactly what the exercise was that we were doing, but I was sat there with Paul and Rhonda, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this new dance life coaching type workshop, and it's going to be called Freedom Through Movement. And it was just there in that moment.
Is that where you created that? I didn't know that.
That's where it got created.
Wow, with the waves crashing against the rocks. Yeah.
Yep. I had Paul and Rhonda there to witness me, and that they were like, yeah, awesome, okay, cool, great. And that's where it was born.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, and it was just such a fleeting moment of just connecting to something that was really important. I don't even know what led up to that, but I really remember that moment of like, yeah, I'm going to create this new workshop. It's going to be called Free. And the freedom of being able to just create like that in that moment. The name came out. I didn't ever change the name of it. It was just there. It was ready. It was ready. That was really cool. And to know that I've got access to those moments all the time is really awesome.
Yeah, perfect. It's a perfect moment actually, because you're on an adventure, growing as a human being, deciding what you want your life to be and your work to be. Bang, it all aligns, and you come up with something that's been of service to people and that you love. And the way you talk about it just shows how much you love it. That's what a demonstration of the life you've created, from that leap you took all those years ago. What an amazing thing.
Yeah, it is amazing. I don't think there's any other word for that. And I think the 2014 version of me, who at the start of January 2020 had just reached such a low point in my life, and I remember that's when I was in my second year of setting themes for myself for the year ahead, and I declared that would be the year that Arti got her spark back. and I had no idea what that meant at that moment in time. But if she can see me now and what's happened on this journey, she's like, oh, I think she'd be jaw dropped on the floor, dragging against the floor, like, wow. Yeah, it's quite something.
Yeah, well, your eyes sparkled, you know, when you were talking about that. So it's clearly something that is like in your soul. You know, you get to bring and is your work, but it's your passion, it's your life. You know?
Yeah, life first.
Yeah, life first. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So, Arti, this has been epic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was a nice journey to go on.
Yeah. So just actually like take a moment to reflect back then. What would you say were the most important, like, because of course there's stuff that you learn, but there's stuff that changed you inside. You know, if you were to just go back and think, what is it that changed within you, you know, that have been lasting? What are those things?
The failing out loud, that real willingness to fail courageously has been a big one on this journey. The willingness to really be in relationship with instability. To really be able to hold a space for that, I think, has been a big one. To question more and question often myself and the world around me. Like to never just take something for face value, like to really interrogate and test it, to make it my own, if that feels right. To take incredible amounts of responsibility for myself and my life. To be succinct. To ask better questions, to ask better questions that lead to better answers, clearer answers. Self-correct. To I think that kind of maybe tags on off the back of what did I say earlier? The failing out loud. To fail out loud and to self-correct as a result of whatever has come out of that. I think, yeah, they're quite, I think fail out loud was my version of of self-correction, but that was a big one. to really be willing to become a student of life, right? To never assume that once I learn something, that I've really learned it. Like to really be willing to interact with something, as I said earlier, to interrogate it, to practice it, to be willing to be like, no, that's not for me actually, or I don't like that, and this is what I prefer. To be quite unrelenting in my sort of questioning of things. To not expect things in relationships, all of my relationships. By that I mean to not place responsibility on someone else to be something in a relationship for me. To always be willing to bring what I might want to receive or what I might want to see, like to and going back to the responsibility thing, like to take full responsibility for my part in a relationship, whether that's the relationship with my business, with a client, with, as you know, with my family, with my friends, my relationship to life, to never make assumptions, to never have expectations of how I want it to be or how someone should be. To be willing to have uncomfortable conversations. to just be willing to get uncomfortable, full stop. I think is there for sure. To not take things too seriously, in the sense of, like, this is one big experiment, and the critique sessions are a great example of that, right? Where you're asking us to practice something as we coach someone for 5 minutes, and it's like, oh, all eyes on me, and what if I get this wrong? Again, we talk about that lab space, like that lab space, I can take that anywhere, that experimental approach to conversations, to life, to things that I want to create. I can take that anywhere with me, and to actually just, just sort of like let go a little bit, just let loose a little bit. And if it goes wrong, then it's not the end of the world. If you fuck up, it's not the end of the world. Like, you will survive. You're not going to die. And I think you've used exactly those words many times in our coaching sessions. But you're not going to die if something goes wrong, even though it might feel like it at the time. Yeah. So yeah, I think those are a lot of the key things that I've taken away.
And then what was the experience like of being in the group, like under the critique, right? Not criticism, critique sessions, where you're coaching, obviously I'm teaching you certain things, then you're experimenting with them with each other, and then I'm critiquing how you did, or when you were coaching other people, right? I'd give those the volunteer sessions, right? And we do the same thing, right? So you'll be you're exposing your coaching, right, to critique with me, but also with the group. You know, what was that like?
So the in-person critiques or the group was always more nerve-wracking for me than when we had to do it on our own and then submit the video, because that felt more like a natural way of me coaching. It's just me and my client. It's being recorded anyway, regardless of whether I'm submitting it for critique or not. I would record my sessions. So that's cool. That's fine. I always felt nervous doing our sessions, no matter how many times we'd done it.
We did a lot of them.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's quite similar to, you know, when you share that self-consciousness that you feel in the dance class sometimes, right? Of like, eyes on me as I practice this new move. It was the same as like eyes on me as I practice this new move.
Yeah.
Right. And knowing that I'm not doing it with something unimportant. Like I'm someone, you know, one of my fellow coaches is bringing something that's incredibly important to them to that coaching session that we're having together. So not to take that lightly. That always felt like it added a level of pressure. Like, I want to help this person. You know, this isn't just about me getting better at this skill. I want to help this person if I can in these 5-10 minutes that we spend together. That's really important. So I always felt nervous. I, hand on heart, didn't look forward to those coaching sessions as much as I did the other ones where we did like the business skills or we did the life coaching. I was always a little bit like, oh God, all right, come on, Arti, you can do it. Like, I had to give myself a bit of a pep talk beforehand, and just the relief, you know, like when on Strictly Come Dancing, the couple goes first and then they can just enjoy the show. It's like, that's probably one of the reasons why I shoot my hand out first, because I can get it over and done with as quickly as possible, and then just enjoy the show. So yeah, they were always challenging, but always came away having, you know, learned. Always grateful that even though I got really uncomfortable, I was always willing to put myself forward for the critique, because I did want to get better and I did want to help, you know, not just, you know, the coach in that group, but I wanted to be able to help my clients as well. So I always was connected to the importance of that. But that didn't mean there wasn't resistance, David.
Good to know, because obviously it was obvious it was there, but it's interesting to know that it was always there. Actually.
Yeah, I think pretty much most of the time. Yeah, I think because you never know. I think I never knew what to expect in terms of like, what new thing are we going to be testing today, and how would we be testing it, and more than anything, what is the coachee going to bring for us to test this thing with? Like, is it going to be something that's really, really raw and you know, huge in some way? Like, is it something like that I'm going to have to be holding the space for whilst trying to practice this particular technique? That was always, I think, just the pressure of that there. It's a big one.
It's good to know, because obviously, just didn't know quite the level of it actually, which is interesting. So that obviously, that just for me is how I can make it better, because I could have, means I didn't prepare you well enough actually, because I didn't give enough space to prepare sometimes. It's okay that you had that, but I think I could have done better to actually have you like be ready so that you didn't want to get it over with, you know. So actually that's good.
Yeah, I think, you know, it definitely subsided over time. Like, I definitely noticed like, okay, well, like, yeah, I'm getting used to this, that we do this and we show up in this way, and what putting my hand up first, it wasn't just always for that reason, let me get this out of the way as quickly as possible, because that that was one of the other things that we practice, like be the person that says yes first.
Yeah, that was obviously an important part of our work as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to practice that. I want to almost, like, I understood the importance of being so fresh to it in that moment, not even having heard your critique of anyone else yet, and just practice that in its rawest form. That I was aware of, like that, I just want to I want to put here that it wasn't just all fear based and nervousness based. There was this, like, okay, I want to practice it in its rawest form. I want to be the person that says yes often, because then that's something that I've been practicing in my life, and I've been sharing with my clients as well. Like, if they say, do you have questions? Well, yeah, I do. Or do you want to demonstrate something? Yeah, I do. Or do you want to be a volunteer? Yeah, I do. And that's been practiced in those sessions for sure. But I think you articulating that level of self-consciousness that you feel when you are in the dance class, I've been able to equate that to how I felt that level of self-consciousness, and that would manifest as nerves sometimes and often for the critique sessions.
Yeah, that's great. It's good to know. It's just helps me, as I want that's a fundamental part of how I work with coaches. So it's good to know that even after all that time, it was still quite high, which means there's things I can do there, So I should have asked you more about your experience of it, rather than just assuming you're just gonna get on with it. So that's just a gap that I missed, which is great to know.
And I think, just having this time away from it and being able to look at it very clear-eyed now as well. I mean, at that point, if you had asked me, I don't know, would I have recognized it as well as I do now? I don't know, but definitely.
No, but I would have.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I would have recognized it in whatever response you gave. Yeah. So it's just, I didn't ask that question. It's just one of those things as well. It's one of the challenges of working over time, is that certain things you can't see certain things, right?
Yeah.
And so it's great that you shared that, because now I'll bring that attention to make sure that question is answered and dealt with.
Yeah.
Like I did it yesterday, actually, in the little workshop that that I gave for your clients, right? It was just to because I noticed their discomfort was obvious, and so I just wanted to bring that to the forefront, so they're aware of it and can also alleviate it. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah,
and that reminds me, that's the other thing I've created, right? The Fearless Love Club.
Of course, there you go. And there's probably others on the list too.
Yes, there was the Fearless Love program that never came to fruition, but it was there. It's still there. The papers and everything are there. So yeah, there's a few other things.
Very cool.
I should make a list, actually, I think, of all the things that were created at the time, the things that came to life and the things that just stayed as an idea. That'd be quite interesting, actually.
Yeah, it's cool. And then you can always draw on them as a resource, right? Things you can revisit that you forgot, that you forget how successful things are. A number of times I've done something, moved on, and then actually come across it by accident and gone, oh, that was really good. It works really well. People love that. Just did it once.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Because actually this end of year thing, I have sort of bringing in something from Fearless Love that about the honoring where you're at right now. It was a version of honoring the relationships that you already have in your life, which I want to bring into the new version of Fearless Dating. But actually I was like, well, actually it's really important at the end of the year not to just think about all the things that we want to get rid of, but really honor the things that are already here that we want to stay as well, because of this whole, well, how do we learn to sort of appreciate? I think I feel that I get better at appreciating the things that I want if I take time to appreciate the things that I already have, and to really recognize that it's okay to want things and to feel grateful for what you have already as well. Like, I think I remember that in one of our coaching sessions, actually, where I think this was on maybe one of the tryouts that we did, where I was like, I really, really want my own place, or to be back in my own place again. And I used to feel this sense of guilt, but look how lucky I am to live in this home with my family, and because I want to be in my own place, it means that I'm kind of shunning this part, or I'm ungrateful. But actually, to that realization in that moment of, it's okay, the two can coexist, that was it. And that's been something that I really want to bring into this series as well. I think that's really important. So how did we get there? Sorry. Oh, the creation of things that never came to fruition. Right. Yes. So there you go. Yeah. So I'm calling upon something from Fearless Love that never got to see the light of day there, but will hopefully hear. Which is cool.
Nothing's ever wasted. The whole process of going through creating, you because you become more through creating, even if no one actually says yes to that thing, then you have more to bring to the next offering, don't you?
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool. So to sort of wrap up then, like, how would you describe the experience of being coached by me in like one-on-one and in a group?
This is challenging because I don't quite know how to put the experience into words, because it's unlike anything that I've ever experienced before in any relationship with, how close Priya and I are. That's like the closest relationship in my life, closely followed by my relationship with Mel, and even in those relationships, I have not experienced what I have with you. That space that you've been able to create where everything's okay. Like, there's nothing that you can bring to me that will faze me, that will shock me, that will judge me. And I know we can have a laugh and a joke about things, and I know you can like tease me about stuff, stupid things that I've done or said, or you could disagree with something and be like, well, you could have done that better, or you could have this, that, whatever it has been. But I've never ever felt that it's ever come from a place of judgment or superiority or or anything like that. Like, it's I felt always throughout the constant thing in our partnership has always been sort of never ending, constant love, just full stop, the whole way through. And to me, that's that's been priceless. Like, that I have never experienced. And the thing that in addition, that I've really experienced with you is like, I've really been witnessed by you, and even witnessed by you in things that I've not even witnessed in myself, that I never thought were obvious. You've seen them and you've reflected them back to me. And the fact that this, going back to the superiority thing, is that I've never felt like this is a relationship where I can't bring things to you for your attention. Like, it's never been like you have it all sussed, or you have it all sorted, and that you're closed off to, opinion or critique or anything like that. Like it's always been a two-way relationship, I think, and that allows for the relationship to go that much deeper, I think, and means that I think we've gone further than I can imagine. I mean, as I said, I've been coached by other coaches, and yeah, nothing comes close to the relationship that you and I have created and I've experienced with you over this time. And I would be really flipping surprised if I found someone else on this journey that could bring what you do. You know, and I think obviously part of that as well is that we have really developed it. I feel like we've really worked on this like connection together as well, and we, you know, you talk about it and we've talked about it. Now it goes beyond coach client, it's family now, and that's allowed me to sort of lean into it more, but also lean back in the sense of just kind of you know, and just relax into it a bit more as well. Whereas with other coaches in the past and present, I'm still aware of that coach-client relationship, right? Whereas I don't feel that with you when I have been coached by you, and to this day. And again, it's unlike anything that I've experienced and can imagine experiencing with another coach. So that to me has been priceless and invaluable, and not a day goes by where I am not grateful for you and your presence in my life, and what the work that we've done together, and what you have enabled me to create and become. So I'm always grateful to you for that. And yeah, you won't get rid of me ever. So I'm like your number one barnacle.
Well, that's not why I'd want to clean off the hull.
So there you go. I'll reduce myself to a barnacle.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's beautiful. Because of course, you know, that's you know, we've had some very difficult interactions, right? Where we've had to talk about things that you would not have wanted to talk about, you know, and things that you had been potentially, sometimes you've been avoiding for years, actually. And so even in those moments, you know, so even when I've been very direct, like I remember in Spain, actually, when you're in the back of the car, right, and there was a moment where I challenged you very directly. Like even in that moment, like how did that feel, like from when I was being like challenging in a way that, you know, took you back to being a child, really, because that's where it was, the trigger was from, right? What was that experience?
Fuck you, David. Where's the door? Can I just do one of those? Fling myself
Roll out of the car
onto the motorway. Yeah, I think again, huge testament to what you've created with me, because yeah, I really didn't like you in that moment. Not because of you, but because of like, this is so exposing and this is so true, and it's in front of, like, I'd been fine if it was just Priya there or even Paul, because we'd been in those situations before, like, but then there's all these other people that I know, but I've got to know over that time, and there was that physical distance between us, right? You're right at the front of the car looking out driving, and I'm right at the back, and we can't even really make eye contact through the rear view mirror. That's as much eye contact as we can make. And and it literally was nowhere to escape to in that moment. But because of the work that we had done together, I also didn't want to escape, because I knew how important that was, and how, like, I was so disappointed in myself, because in that moment I was just like, man, I've done so much work on this. Like, I've come so far with my body, with like challenging myself physically, with sports and like just physical activities and everything like that. And I was so disappointed that I just let myself down in that moment, just so easily, in such a quick moment of trigger. And I remember thinking, like, why did I have that moment of weakness so like, felt quite sudden, and just so reactive. Like, it was such a shrunken moment, and it just changed the trajectory of everything from that moment. And because of the relationship that we'd had, and having been in similar-ish moments with you before, and even with myself, I knew that, well, there is nowhere to go. You can't, you don't escape this. You face this. Like, you face this because you know why it's so damn important. So I didn't hate you. I didn't hate me. I didn't hate. I was just like, oh, like, damn it. Why? It's almost like hated the feeling of what I was just about to do, where I was just about to expose myself to what was really going to come out and happen as a result of that, as a result of Quad Bike Gate. As I like to think of it now.
Quad Bike Gate, I like it.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. And just sort of validates that early, sort of the tryout. Really, of course, we had our connection before, but validates that tryout we did years before. Really connecting and exploring the chemistry and the service that could be to you. That just validates how much that works very well, because of course, without that, we wouldn't necessarily have been able to then have that kind of connection, those kind of moments, which means I was able to hold you to the most painful moments that have affected you all of your life, and you can stay there long enough that you can begin to change through them. That's what we got to do together. Obviously, that's one example. There are many, right, over our time together.
Yeah.
But it's wonderful to know your internal experience of me holding that with you, because I felt that it was the right thing to do in that moment for you. It was of service. It was horrible to do it, by the way, just to be very clear.
Yeah.
I hated it.
I can
It was horrible. I was horrible. I did not want to say those things, but it was, I didn't want to leave it either, because it was right there. It was within you in that exact moment. So that was the moment that was necessary to bring it to you. And so I had to go through my own discomfort to do that, and risk whatever reaction you had, and be willing to hold it for as long as I needed to for it to work. And it's just beautiful to hear your side of it, actually, as it working like that.
I think because I also was aware of that in that moment. Like, I also had this dialogue where David wouldn't be doing this right here like this now if this wasn't really damn important, and if he didn't believe that if he just didn't really believe in, I don't know how to phrase it, but I just knew you wouldn't be doing this frivolously. Like, you don't do anything frivolously, but I wouldn't have, I just know you wouldn't have picked that moment if there wasn't just a a deeper purpose, a more important reason behind it. Like I know you would have been doing it to piss me off slightly, because pissing me off would be part of the freedom creation there, right? And the exploration of it, you know. But it's the right way to piss someone off, right? Yeah. So I had that trust in you again through the work that we'd been doing leading up to that moment of like, you wouldn't just be doing this just for shits and giggles, right? I'm like, oh, let me just expose Arti in front of everyone in this van where she can't escape. Right? Yeah.
And actually, the part of it was because the pattern was created most likely because of others, right? And you were triggered. There were others there, you know. So it had to really, the best place for it was in front of others. It was so necessary, really.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what I was saying about wanting to do a lot of work on my own, like not being so open to doing group work, again, that feeling quite confronting and exposing for me. If that quad bike gate had happened and it was just me and the instructor and maybe like you or Richie there, I probably would have gone ahead with it. I would have made mistakes. I would have been like, oh, this is what I'm feeling. Like I probably would have said to that guy, you know, like, oh, well, you know, what you said about me being little or small or whatever it was that he said, I probably would have communicated that. And so I would have shared with him, well, okay, like I've been told that quad bikes are hard to handle, you know, and so I'm worried that as a skinny person, I won't be able to handle this. So can you go easy on me or whatever it is? Like I would have communicated more for sure. But then just adding that level of the sort of public exposure, well, that was the situation that I felt uncomfortable with, and I didn't want to be seen as the weakling, even though I made myself the weakling by behaving in that way and choosing to do that, making that choice in that moment. I weakened myself immensely in that moment. So yeah, just that exposure in the van was a great kind of replication of that exposure in that moment when everyone's being assigned their bikes and their helmets and all of that as well. Yeah.
And could you take her out, please? That's cool.
Hi,
Maybe
Ben.
Bessie as well. Arti says hi.
Hello, Arti.
Hi.
If you could take them both out, because Pepper's getting a bit itchy. No, she's all right. Just leave her there then, man. Just take Pepper. Yeah. So yeah, just wonderful to reflect there as well. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you.
Thank you for creating a space where I have been able to become more me as well.
There's so much, isn't there? It's like, even as here, there's so much more we could explore.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've been here for almost 3 hours now, so I'm aware it's like epic, and I really appreciate you being here for this long. The advantage of creating a life where we have space, right?
Yes, it means I have to do double time work tomorrow. It's cool. It's fine. No, this has been really useful for me as well, just because as I think about doing this end of year reflection program, it's actually, to reflect on how it's just timely. It's very, very timely to be able to do something like this at this point, and with what I want to deliver for the end of the year and into the new year. And as I think about the new work, right, and the new coach that I am now as well, like I don't have a proper title for myself. I've just called myself life coach for singles at the moment. I don't know what that is right now, but it's a starter. But this really helps with that as well. So this has been really useful for me. So thank you for inviting me into this conversation.
You're welcome. I wanted it to be as well, actually. I wanted it to be of service to you as well as to me, and to anyone else who may work with me in the future.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. And
What I'd love actually, like, because obviously this has been epic, so it'll be in the future, in the next few, like sometime in the next few weeks. But what I'd really love is because like we did at the end there, we went into that moment. And I think it would be great to just go through a few, because there are a few key moments, right, that will stand out, to actually go into your experience of them and what happened and how they affected you after. I think that would be great just for me to understand more actually about what they did and how they've impacted you continuously. Could we do that at some point?
Yeah.
Whether we do it this year or whether we wait to the beginning of next, but we find the time to do that together. I'd love to.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, just yeah, let me know. I'm like intrigued to know what moments you'll pick.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure, because I've got some that just leap out like that one, right? There are some that leap out, and then there'll be others that will emerge through the conversation too, right? That we've forgotten about. But
Yeah.
there are, because there are quite some huge moments, really.
Yeah.
And so it'd be great to really get into like your internal experience of those moments, and then yeah, how you built on those. Really, that'd be great for me to truly understand and to be able to then bring to others.
Yeah, cool. Just let me know when you want to do that, and we'll get it done.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Lovely to see you.
You
and
too.
Again.
Yes, see you soon.
And yeah, and so I'll see you for dancing on Saturday.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, thank you for this exploration.
You're very welcome.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. You too.
All
Take
right.
care.
See you Saturday. Bye.